As you know, the holidays can bring all kinds of emotions and hustle and bustle. For some of us, they're exhilarating and fun, but full of frenzy and craziness. And for others, they can actually be really hard and sad and evoke many, many emotions. So today, we're going to be discussing that with our second podcast in the series of Wisdom from the Well. Hi, everybody. Well, as you know, the holidays can bring all kinds of emotions and hustle and bustle. For some of us, they're exhilarating and fun, but full of frenzy and craziness. And for others, they can actually be really hard and sad and evoke many, many emotions. So today, we're going to be discussing that with our second podcast in the series of Wisdom from the Well. And I'd like to introduce our host, Tracy Astle, Lois Zehr, and I'm Lisa Roy Bowers, and I'm a holistic wellness mentor. So thank you everybody for joining us, and I'm excited to get started into our discussion.
Hey, it's always exciting to be with you guys.
Yes, I always look forward to this day of the month when we do this together.
Okay.
So maybe just start with kind of where we are as far as in our life situations and where we have been in our life situations to kind of give a little context for the holiday situations that we may have been through. I have four children who are all adults now, so I've been through all the holidays with all the Christmas and I mean all the kids and when they're little and all the various ages, and now dealing with grandkids. I say that like I'm dealing with grandkids, enjoying my grandkids at Christmas. Get to keep the childlike magic through the grandkids. Um, and I am fortunate enough to live where three of my four kids live close by. So for us, it's a big family affair. And so that's kind of where we are. And then we also have my husband's parents now who live not an hour away, who are not, they're elderly and not traveling anymore. And so they're not part of the big family gatherings, but every other Thanksgiving we go down and we have a very quiet Thanksgiving with them. So this is kind of where we are as far as the experiences we've had through Thanksgiving and Christmas and the holiday season. How about you, Lisa?
Well, we have all of our family here, just about except for my sister. My husband and I are a combined family. So we have four children, seven grandchildren. All of our parents live around us and extended parents. So it's a very busy time for us. And I think some of the things that we really wrestle with is how do we fit everybody in? It's like my family has certain days they want to do things, his family has certain days. You know, we don't really tend to do everything together except for one Christmas like black elephant thing. So it's really interesting juggling it all. I feel like we eat way too much. So many meals. And I was sharing because Lois is from Canada and she'll talk about that, but their Thanksgiving is October, correct? And
That's right.
so, but my family actually did Thanksgiving last week, which I know this will be airing later, but it's about 2 weeks early because that was the time we could find that everybody was on board and not working. And then we'll do my husband's family the Saturday after Thanksgiving because of the work issues again. So it's just a lot of juggling and fun, but it's also frantic in so many ways. It really is. And then we all have had people in our lives that we've lost. So, the holidays can also bring some deep, sad feelings as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, for sure. I think people kind of get caught in that either joyful, crazy busy, or in that longing and loneliness and sorrow and mourning what used to be, but maybe is no longer, or maybe even something that hasn't ever been for them, but there's these ideals that they pick up from society and from others that they talk to who project a certain reality that may or may not be entirely true. And so Yeah, I think there is a juggle. For me, it's we are the family that has both sides of our family living close by. So my husband has three siblings. I have one sibling, and they're all here. Whereas each of them, their extended families, they don't have here. So
Mm.
we're always the ones juggling two sides of the family. And like you said, Lisa, it's sometimes a challenge to know how to create the space and have the energy because we always want to spend time, but it's how do we create that space and have the energetic capacity and emotional presence to be with people. And I think for us, we've done some of the similar things that you have done, and that is recognizing these holidays are meant to serve us. We're not servants of these things. And therefore, we can actually shift the days. We don't have to do everything on the day that, you know, someone out there says is the day for us to do the thing. And I think that in and of itself, provides relief. And I don't know, I think we just are learning to exercise choice in these matters more as we, I don't know, can we say we get older and more mature?
Yes, we can.
Happily say that.
Yes. And what we're celebrating as this airs is Christmas, which for us as Christians is such a deep, beautiful, it's the foundation besides Easter with Christ's death and resurrection, of what we're about. And even balancing that can be interesting, not getting caught up in what the world believes versus why we know we're here to celebrate. Um, and how do we balance that? And how do we not get caught up in trying to juggle our businesses and our families and, girlfriend parties and celebrations? And now we have to get gifts, but we still have to do our business, our jobs and our businesses. And, it can be really a time that we lose what it's all about. We lose that foundation. So, how do we manage to maneuver through that without getting crazy? What would you
I
maybe?
know for myself, there's like a kind of an overarching principle that doesn't just apply to this by any stretch of the imagination. But I find that when I get too focused on doing
Mm.
instead of being, which is so easy to do because it's lovely to have a checklist and check it all off, and that, get those little dopamine hits from that. But that to me is where when I find myself getting really stressed, I just take a step back and go, okay, wait a minute, where's my focus here? And at least 90% of the time that I just am too focused on the doing. And it's, obviously an important part because we can't just not do anything. But the that I just learned a really great lesson from that. From of all places, I have this big, beautiful pecan tree in my backyard, and it's just this gorgeous, gorgeous tree. And as I was kind of thinking about this, trying to find that balance of being and doing, I was looking at that tree and it just hit me. It's like, this tree is a perfect example of that. The balance of being and doing, because it is doing everything it's meant to do. It is producing nuts. It's providing a home for the squirrels and a place for the crows to hang out and play, and providing food for the squirrels and raccoons and all the different birds, and a scratching post for the cats, and and shade in the summer, and it's providing beauty. It's providing everything it's supposed to provide. It's doing everything it's supposed to do, but it's not trying to. That backcountry has no to-do list. It has just being what it was intended to be. It just is. And as I was thinking about that, I thought it occurred to me honestly for the first time that Christ is the perfect example of that.
Mm.
He, you want to talk about somebody who had every reason, more reason than anybody else ever in the world, to have a 500-mile long to-do list. There was nobody who did anything ever more important than what he did. And he had such a short time to do it, that the time that he was here in mortality anyway. And but he didn't, we get no sense at all in the scriptures of him hurrying and being busy and checking items off the list. There's just such a feeling of spaciousness
Yeah.
in what we learn of him and his ministry. And I thought that's just another way to look at him as an example, that to find that balance. And man, it's just this so deep why we get so pulled into the doing. Well, we don't have, that's a whole nother episode for another time.
Mhm.
But the to when I at the holidays, if I find myself and I feel the stress ramping up, it's like, hold on, am I focused on doing or being? And in this case, the being is like, what do I want these holidays to be? And it's not just about the presents under the tree and the decorations and the right food and it's okay, what is the feeling? What's the feeling? And can I have that feeling if I don't get the pecan pies made from the pecans from my beautiful tree? Can I still
Mhm.
have that feeling with if I'm late for this situation or if I'm not going to get to see my kids in Nebraska? Can I still have that feeling? And that kind of focused on that. What do I want this to be? And what is this? What is the purpose of this? Like Lois mentioned, having this holiday serve its purpose, not me serve it. I just think that's a great way to frame that, Lois.
I love
Mhm.
that. And we touched base on our first episode a little bit about that, about staying in the moment, that sometimes we can get so caught up in the journey that we lose sight of where we're at this very day. So, that's something beautiful to remember daily, daily, not just around the holidays,
Mhm.
and as it states in Philippians, I think it's 4:5 through 7, be anxious for nothing, but everything in prayer and supplication with thanksgiving. Key word, thanksgiving in our hearts.
Mhm.
So let's walk
Mhm.
that journey and let that be known to God with thanksgiving in our hearts. Thank Him along the journey.
Mhm. And I think that this season is great opportunity to practice the in nothing be anxious too, Lisa, just in that verse that you have brought up. And, from my life's experience, I, from a very challenging season in my life, I learned to use that verse as a metric almost. It's like, okay, I have this situation. Is this it? Because it says in nothing be anxious. So I always play with myself. I'm like, is this a nothing? Is this one of those situations where, right? Because you catch yourself in the moment. It's like, oh, wait a minute, is this a nothing? Oh, yeah, this is a nothing. So then that means that this is one of those things I'm called to not be anxious about. And if I can obey that by leaning in and like you said, in everything, let my request be made known to God with thanksgiving, then that in and of itself is the process for me to not be anxious about this thing. And I think the holidays are a great opportunity for us to learn, okay, Lord, in this moment, in this season, you know, how do I navigate all the things with joy and thanksgiving? And I think, as you were talking, Lisa, for me, I was thinking about what are the values that I bring into this season that help guide me so that I don't get taken away and feel like I'm serving the holiday instead of having it serve me. And what are the important things? And clearly for me, family and time spent, relationships are of utmost importance. And figuring out how do I know how to connect with the family in their love languages, if you will, right? And meet the needs of the individuals while also having my own needs met. I think that's part of recognizing, okay, who am I? Who am I being with? And what are my values? And so when we come at one of these holidays or all of these holidays from that angle, which is a bit of a learning process, then we're setting it up with a bit of a compass to guide us right into the season with Lisa, Tracy, you were saying, how do I want to feel? Again, that's a compass. Like what are the things that are important? If I get to the end of the season, what would be the things that I would say I would be disappointed over if those things hadn't happened. Because I feel like if you get clarity, it's always that see the end from the beginning. If you can get clarity about what are the important factors, then you can navigate yourself. And we as women, we are the center usually of our households and families, and we play a strong role in guiding the energy and the events, if you will. Not trying to be racist or selective or sexist or any of those things, whatever the word is here. But the reality is, from the women I talk to, it feels like it falls a lot on the moms and the women in the household to do that kind of thing. So we play actually a very important role. And so for us to get ourselves lined up and with clarity of what are the important things that I want to guide my family, my household, my relationships towards in this season, that's, I think, a big deal.
Well, as I stated, we did our Thanksgiving early, and I have to tell you, it was so simple yet beautiful. My mom wanted to host, even though I wasn't sure it was the best, but we all pitched in and helped. And all of our kids, grandkids, everybody's artistic, but you don't have to be to do this. She has a tablecloth that she has people write Thanksgiving things on or draw pictures. And so, all the my grandchildren, along with their dads, were drawing pictures on this cloth. And it was so simple, but it pleased my mother's heart so much that when everybody left, she just cried. She was like, it was just perfect. And it wasn't anything fancy. It wasn't anything, crazy. It was so simple, just having everybody together, enjoying each other, joyful, doing that together.
And I think that's a really good illustration of something that we tend to do that can cause the stress when we're feeling the stress of the holidays is we get these expectations of
Mhm.
from wherever, from how our holidays were when we were children, from TVs and movies, from the all the advertising we're bombarded, wherever they're coming from, we get these expectations of what we think these holidays should look like or be like. And that's just such a good example of it doesn't have to be, that wasn't Pinterest board worthy as far as the beauty of it. It wasn't what and it just wasn't something that would be
Martha Stewart.
right,
Yes.
exactly.
Mhm.
The picture perfect holiday table. But what it was and it didn't cost much. It didn't take a ton of time, only as much time as people wanted to be very artistic. I'm sure they took longer with their pictures, and if they weren't, then they probably just did a quick little something. And that was all fine. And it was so, so meaningful. And I think the expectations of what we expect, this very high standard sometimes that we set for what we want or feel like the holidays should be and should look like. I think that gets in our way a lot. And so maybe looking at our expectations is another way that we
Mm.
can kind of monitor our stress and ask ourselves, do I really have to have those gold candles in that with that particular setting in order for this to be a wonderful holiday? It's like maybe because for some people that's their thing. It's their jam, it's their jive, it's what they love, and it's very fulfilling to them to do it. And so in that case, yes. In other cases, like for me, no. I mean, I like the things to look all pretty, but nine times out of ten for me, that's just not where my forte is. And so it just feels like so much effort that if I can get it done, great. And if I can't, one Christmas we were also it was just us and our oldest son and his family. And we were all just like, okay, we've been with so much family lately for very many things. And since we live close to each other, we see each other a lot. So it's not like Christmas is some big, oh my goodness, we never get to see you. And we were all like, and we're not, me and my daughter-in-law, because let's be real, that's who the bulk of the preparation would fall on, as Lois pointed out. It's like my daughter-in-law's like, I just don't want to make a big meal. And I'm like, I'm on board with that. Why don't we order Chinese? And so
Yeah.
we just ordered
Yes.
Chinese food and had Chinese food for Christmas dinner.
Yes. I think that's awesome. It's
So
about the
yeah, that
togetherness,
does.
the heart.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And yes, I think that's so important. I remember when my son was, I don't know, he was under 2, and we had some traditions for Christmas Eve usually that were full meals and all these things, but I had just experienced a miscarriage, and I was grieving, and I was thinking, how do we be celebratory and yet be honoring of where we are? I'm like, I don't want to cook. I don't want to. I mean, I already knew we had the big thing the next day, right? But my husband and I, we love nachos, and our son loves nachos. And so in that season, we started on Christmas Eve to have shrimp nachos. We started with nachos, and then we all love shrimp. So it's like, let's dress it up and we're going to have shrimp nachos. And to this day, that's the tradition. Our kids are like, are we having shrimp nachos on Christmas Eve? So you think about how something like a painful point that causes us to resist the norm or what has always been brings in a new joyful experience and tradition. I think such a cool thing, right? Just like Chinese food instead of cooking a big whatever.
Yeah.
It's about being together and not neglecting honoring the what's important in the season.
Yeah, the story of Mary and Martha comes to mind as we talk about
I was
this.
thinking that earlier as well.
And the with Martha being so busy and cumbered about with much serving, and Mary just sitting at the feet of the Savior. And not often when we hear this story, Martha's kind of dissed on, like, don't be like Martha. But in reality, the doing does need to happen. So I've heard years and years ago the saying of having Mary's heart and Martha's hands.
Ah,
And I love that idea. But when we are feeling this, the pressures of this, just kind of maybe go, okay, am I being too Martha-like in that moment where she was just like, why am I having to do everything? I don't know about you, but I have felt that way, especially at Christmas, but through the years, sometimes it's like, why do I have to do everything? And I've said half jokingly, that if I ever died, no one in the family would ever get a gift again because my husband does not, that's just not what he does. It's like my grandkids never know the birthday present, probably. Um, but I have felt like that. And it's like, in those moments, like, okay, hello, Martha, if I, and as I've gotten older, I don't know if either of you have seen it, but there's this woman who is, I find her on Instagram because that's where I am. But it's the We Do Not Care Club. It's for women who are in perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. And all it is all these just this bunch of, different reels of things. Okay, we're just putting the world on notice that we don't care about some things like we used to. And it's like, we don't care that whatever, whatever. And it's just really this funny thing that's taken off like wildfire. And in relation to the holidays, I realized just a few years ago, like I said, kids are all grown. My one adult daughter lives with us, but I was putting up the Christmas tree, and it's like, well, you want to decorate with me? And I always thought it was as important to them as it was to me. Apparently, it is not. And so, one year I just went, you know what? I don't care. I want the tree up, so I'll put the tree up, and I want the lights on it, so I'll put the lights on it. And I have a few ornaments that are very important to me that I'll put on there. And then I'll just, if I get around to the rest of it, I will. And if I don't, I won't. And if it's important to them, they can do it, or I'll be happy to do it with them. But it was just so lovely to just let go of that. Oh, the tree has to be up and it has to all look like this. So now I do the things when it comes to Christmas decorating, I do the things that bring me joy.
Mm.
And if anybody else in the family wants anything else, I'm happy to do it with them, or they're welcome to do it. And one year, I just
Mm.
left the box of ornaments sitting out. And whenever somebody came over, I'd say, "Oh," they're like, "Oh, you're treated." I'm like, "You want to put an ornament on? You can decorate it if you want."
Oh, what a
And
neat
so
idea.
that was really fun. And it was born honestly of, hmm, I'm kind of done decorating this tree, but I don't feel like putting the ornaments away yet. And it turned into this really lovely, that year when I was looking at the tree, it's like, oh yeah, and so put that ornament on and
Oh,
everybody loved helping to decorate our tree. So just these things to
oh.
just kind of let go of and
Back to those memories, those connections, those moments.
mm-hmm,
Wow.
mm-hmm,
Mm.
yeah.
That's great. I love that idea of inviting people into the space to decorate something because you are developing the relationships. You're focusing on that. I had a friend who they always had a Christmas tree decorating party and they always had all their friends over and they would have a good time and decorate the household tree, which is an interesting thing. I think I was
Mhm.
back in the day when I remember hearing about that, I was like way too controlling to want to allow that because I'm like, I would not like that tree. But it's interesting, Tracy, going back to that whole idea of expectations. Is that okay, Lisa, if we go here? Yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And what we expect. And I think we often get ourselves into that place of, why am I the only one doing this? Or why do I have to do this? Which really speaks to, okay, I'm feeling obligated to do something. And have I checked in with, does anybody else care? Or is this just important to me? Which is exactly what your story demonstrated. And when you were talking, I was also thinking about one of the lessons that I've learned and I'm still learning. And that is often when we occupy a space just because we want it done a certain way or it's always been done a certain way, we've done it that way, a certain way, we actually don't allow other people in. And so we monopolize the space. And so people just learn not by words because we don't always use our words, but we hold the space that, well, no, you might not do it the way I like it, or you might not know how to do it properly. For me, it was the word properly. Like there's a proper way to do things, everything, and it's according to my perspective, right? Which left me having to do a lot of things because, if people don't do it properly, then mom just goes and redoes it anyway. So what's the point? So
Mm,
then it was learning to okay, step back and go, okay, I am kind of hogging this space. And so, of course, nobody's going to step into it until I step back. And so I think that that's something for us to pay attention to because we have these expectations, but one, are they important to anybody else? And if they're not, then why are you, me, or us, whoever, you know, upholding that space? And if they are important to somebody else, what if somebody else might have a lovely way
mhm.
of contributing in a fresh new perspective of how to accomplish it and get it done? But that requires me to be more trusting of other people and surrender my control in a situation. What are your
Well,
thoughts on that?
well, kind of on that line, the same thing with giving. Um, there are people, and I have to say I'm one of them, that love to give, but they're not very good at receiving. So it's back to those expectations. And I think what we have to realize that really combines with what you're saying, Trace, or I'm sorry, Lois, is that we have these places that we misalign with other people, and their gift might also be with giving or with joy. Sometimes it's just like, let me bring this joy and bring what I'm good at into the picture instead of me cutting it all off at the pass and going, no, that's too much, or I can't do it, or. And I think that we take away from people as well, sometimes with their own expectations, and when we really clamp down and don't allow people into that space.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, it's almost, if it weren't so true, I mean, we can laugh at it because it is almost comical when we say, wait, when we realize that we are controlling a space and then we turn around and complain that we have to do everything.
I
So,
know, right?
Okay, well, let's take a second and just laugh at ourselves for that one because that's a pretty, when we think about it, pretty ridiculous mindset to have. It does nobody any good. And the same kind of thing with giving and receiving. And it seems these are things that can really, I don't want to minimize how hard they can feel and uncomfortable they can feel sometimes, but at the same time, I think it's important to go, oh, this isn't just me. Um, and I think honestly, for a lot of women, and sometimes particularly Christian women, it is so much easier to give than to receive. And but one of my coaches really has helped me to see that there's a flow to things. And if we're just giving, 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 and not receiving, we're blocking the flow. We're blocking the flow. There has to be a receiver in order for a gift that flow of that giving to be complete. There has to be. And it just like going back to a more important concept of the atonement, the gift of the atonement. If we don't receive that gift and use that gift, then we have blocked the flow of
Mm,
that. And so there has to be, and it is just as blessed to receive graciously and gratefully as it is to give graciously and gratefully, because one without the other doesn't work. If we're just receiving, receiving, receiving all the time, that's out of balance. It's also blocking the flow.
that's such a beautiful point. I'm picturing a tank being emptied as you're saying that. You
Mhm.
know, we give and give and give, and we don't allow other people to fill it. So that tank will eventually empty and run dry. And then what?
Well, and that's when you become resentful and bitter because you are giving from empty and you're running on lack,
Hmm.
and you start to get annoyed with people,
Hmm.
Hmm.
right? Like, at least maybe that's just me, guys, but I don't
That
know.
is not just you.
Yeah.
Not just you at all. Yeah. And when
I
that
think
giving
it's
starts to feel
so,
like a burden instead of a blessing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that what you were saying about the giving and receiving cycle is so true,
Hmm.
to recognize that receiving actually is a strength. It's 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 actually being gracious and honoring of the other person, but also of the abundance that is being shared with us. And so, and it's often about honoring the person who feel led to give to you. So I think it's a, for me, that receiving piece has been a learning for sure. One of you said something about, for us as women, we have a hard time receiving. I'm curious why you think that is.
I was gonna ask the same thing. Yeah. Why? You know, I think that's on so many levels and dimensions. I think sometimes we don't feel worthy. Sometimes we're modeling from, you know, the way we were raised. Um, Sometimes it's control. I think there's different aspects of that. We have some family members that literally will fight over who's going to outgive the other person. I don't know if anybody else has any of those in their family. But then it gets into control. So I don't think that's an easy answer. I, I think there can be some shame in it. I don't know why, but I do believe on some levels people can feel shamed or embarrassed. Um, and it's what you said earlier, Lois, it's just allowing. It's learning that allowing and learning there really is value that we are worth it. You know, God has given us our life, our gifts, and we really do have that value. And other people do love us and care for us. And we need,
I 100% agree that it's so multidimensional to answer that question. So
mhm,
multidimensional. And it's that um, speaking to the idea of the worthiness. And part of that, I think, can be tied to if we just look. taking it to a little bit different level, if we look at the historically, in the for so many in so many cultures, for so many generations, women were not in roles that were financially compensated. And so when, we've gone through this whole in America, and we've gone through this whole over the decades, this whole shift of the rights that women have, and the way that we can now earn financially in ways that we couldn't. I mean, it is ridiculous how recent it is that a woman couldn't even have a checking account or whole or own land. It's just ridiculous. But I think that that kind of plays into it too, because we are so in the culture, we tie value to money. And so a lot of the way culturally for generations, the things that women have done have not been of the same value because of the financial value that was perceived. It's a very warped thing, and it's not true, but it's just how things have evolved. And I think that that comes into the a lot of the worthiness things as well, because women have been taught throughout the generations that what in not in every area, and again, it's not true, but that what they do is not as valuable as what a man does. And so I think that that plays into it too. And just recognize, and that's where it comes into knowing who we are and whose we are. Those two things can cut through so much of the faulty programming that we've received. And when we realize that, this is one of the things I talk about so much, is our worth. And our worth, we can't touch our worth. It's not even possible for us to diminish our worth, because our worth, we are who God says we are. And we are his daughters, period. We are of value to him. Are we of value to more value to him if we're a CEO than if we're a childless single woman? No, we're not. Are we more value to him if we've lived such a beautiful, polished halo, righteous life than if we're languishing in prison for some mistakes that and bad choices we've made? No, we are not of more value to him. He doesn't love us more because of anything we've done. Now, the blessings we receive are different because, if I have made choices that have led to my imprisonment, I don't get to just choose that I'm not going to be in prison because God loves me. That's not how that works. But realizing that our choice is separate from our worth, and that it's not even humanly possible to devalue our worth in the eyes of God. It's not even possible.
Well, and it goes back to Christ died on the cross for all of us. He didn't die for just men or just women or just children or rich or poor. It was each and every one of us. And when we can see ourselves through his eyes, that's when we realize what value we really have. And I don't know about you two, but that can be a daily process because we can give ourselves this negative self-talk a lot. And it's like, stop, see me through thee.
Yeah.
Mhm. And if we,
Yeah.
going back to what we've been talking about, if we can that the beauty and the depth of that, if we can, this holiday of Christmas that can be so stressful, that's what we're celebrating. And so, however we want to celebrate that, whether it's with a tree and a big meal with our family, or whether it's all alone in a personal moment with focusing on that, however we want to celebrate that and honor that, just to, if we can keep in mind that really that's what we're honoring with this holiday, then I think it clears up so many of these other things. And we can go, oh, wait, I'm focusing not on what this is. I am serving the holiday and not allowing the holiday to serve me in honoring Christ in his birth.
Hmm. Because really, when Christ came, and the whole purpose was for him to serve us, right? Like he set the example of love, like not only through his living, but through his death, burial, and his resurrection. He set the standard, and he says it time and time again: love, love your neighbor, love your enemy, love, love, love. And so you think about the holidays. If my focus was on how do I love my family, love those around me. Like you think about, I'm just thinking about Costco, trying to find a parking spot, like, or the mall, and you just think, okay, there is not a whole lot of love happening in this moment when I'm looking at these people like fighting for parking spots or grabbing the last something on the shelf, like zipping in front of somebody to grab something. It's just like, wow, like I think that, one of my core values for the season is learning just to walk in love and learning how to experience love. And I think that just to clarify that whole love thing is like, what does love mean? Really, love is showing value and appreciation for someone and holding them in high regard and considering them precious, which is what God has done for us through Jesus coming to earth, living that human life and dying and resurrecting so that we can now live that exact same life. And so I think it's such a good check to when I'm in the holiday season to go, okay, am I walking in love here? Or like, what else is driving me um, through this season? Because if it's not love, then yeah, I'm serving the holiday. It's not serving me.
And when we can tap into that, then that surpasses any circumstance we may be in. Whether we are surrounded by family and busy and all the crowd of loved ones, or whether we're all alone. When we're focused on that, it can transcend any circumstance, whether we're near home or whether we're far away from home, whether we're in perfect health or whether we're, in a hospital, where whatever, that can transcend any circumstance.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And the greatest of all is love.
Mm-hmm. And I would say I'm just thinking about, because when you started, Lisa, the conversation, you were talking about how the season sometimes for some people is very painful, right? Because we're missing people that we love, or there's a dissonance or a brokenness in relationships, and so there's empty spots at the table for seasons. And I think learning to know and receive God's love in those moments
Mm.
is super critical that whether I think I did something to cause the break in relationships, or I'm pointing the finger at somebody else who I'm holding in a judgmental light. Again, all of those things I can, I think I need to assess and go, okay, God, how do I experience your love in this moment, in this place of sadness, in this place of sorrow? Because it's when we can see ourselves as loved, when we see the other person as loved, like we're equal, right? There's no difference between them and me, what they did or what I did. From God's perspective, we're all deserving of his love, all worthy of his love. So why do I feel like I have one up over that person? Or why do I feel like they are higher than me and I'm putting myself down in this subservient place? And so I think the love is a big factor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So maybe we just end with wishing everybody love this season.
Thank you. And we
Yeah.
thank all of you for joining us at our on our second episode of Listen from the Well. May this season be filled with love, joy, peace, clarity, wisdom. direction. But most of all, just enjoy your family, enjoy your friends. Just know God's love is surrounding you and is there for you. Thank you. Until next time. Thank you.